I think one of the most complex problems we had was one of the urban morphology of the area. That's just the sheer variety of physical shapes of buildings. There's no prevalent style, there's no overarching, I suppose, contextual identity into which we could insert a building of this scale. Trying to be contextual with modernity is complex when one has some very, very large plan office buildings which were under construction at the time we conceived this, extending down to a small Grade 1 listed almshouse. We have other areas which are converted warehouses, and trying to find a form that could mediate not only in terms of the material choices, but also physical form. How does one find a way of mediating between those? Much of what we tried to describe was a series of transitions of scale, a complementary group of buildings. Each on their own is very simple, but the dynamics of how these buildings then adhere to the really variable street edges and how we could disrupt the scale. We always describe it as a breakdown of a headland if you think of physical geography, the nature of how a cliff breaks into an arch, a stack, a stump. We use this analogy just internally to try and find a way of disrupting the edge of this cliff face which was defined by the Bluefin building, and created a series of complementary disruptions, a Giant's Causeway, that allowed us to mediate down to the existing historic fabric. The other thing which we were very keen on was the notion of how we could create permeability, to acknowledge we are secondary to the Tate. So most of the southern buildings from Southwark Street continues the geometry of what will be the new entrance once the new Tate extension is completed. There's a certain generosity in our client's gesture of being able to allow that permeability for everyone to use. We chose gardens because in essence it's a very arid part of the city, and we just felt rather than more additional hard space, we could find a place for people to sit, reflect, eat sandwiches. We've always aimed to create some form of public realm that the building isn't just to do with the occupants, it's actually all those people that don't live there. How do they experience the building and what does it contribute to society as a whole?